All right, guys. So we are back. We are live. We are watching the start. We're going to be watching day one. The trial's already started for today, but we're going to be picking it up from the beginning, of course, and getting caught up. But we're going to be watching a trial out of Florida today. This is the trial of Franklin Tyrone Tucker, known as the Treehouse murder trial. One of these cases that began back in 2017, I believe, if I'm not mistaken on the dates there. Began back in 2017. Quite interesting case. The defendant is out on bail because he was released in 2019 on bail after the state attorney was allegations of ethics violations were made. He was eventually given a $2 million bond, to which a CrossFit millionaire, a woman that was a founder of CrossFit, and I guess her husband or previous husband was. She got like $20 million selling stock. She got in a divorce. And the defendant and her were friends in high school. They fell in love while he was incarcerated, awaiting trial. She eventually believed in his innocence, and she posted his $2 million bond and got him out of prison. Their relationship unfortunately didn't last. They got a divorce, and in 2022, the bond agreement, which was for 3 years, she was released out of it. He's now free on $75,000 bond, which he was able to put up. He's still out on bond today, and interestingly enough, he is representing himself. So, and we say the lawyer that represents the lawyer that represents himself has a fool for a client and a fool for an attorney as well, and both are true in this case. We'll see if he can beat the state of Florida in this case. There apparently is, obviously, given the fact that he went from being on a no bail hold, various ethics violations, various issues, where it looks like it was a lot of the case is based upon an alleged confession he made while incarcerated, and there was problems and issues surrounding that, from what I can tell. I believe it's going to be an interesting case. It's going to be an interesting one to watch. So, without further ado, with that background, let's jump into the courtroom here and start watching justice unfold. And let's jump in there right now.
That if there's an agreement, then it's kind of a moot point. I didn't know that there was an agreement. I'm not sure that that's an absolute requirement for that testimony. I've had a little research myself, and obviously the confrontation clause is a paramount concern. And if the witness is, alive and well to the extent that they can testify in lieu of a deposition to perpetuate, that's the preferred method. I agree with you that the logistics of introducing documents and reviewing and the like is challenging. It can be done, but it's challenging. So I don't know if we readdress this once we get the medical condition.
Sounds fine, Your Honor.
Right, but
the only other,
it looks like we're headed in that direction.
Well, the only other issue I might address with that, if you might, is if the state decides to call her. While I'm making arrangements for the defense to call her, I'm not sure, whether they're going to make arrangements themselves if they decide to call her.
You got to speak up a little bit. You're not sure in the event that they called the witness in their case.
Okay, well, I'm making arrangements so that she can appear via Zoom for the defense, right? Now, they still haven't decided whether they want to call her or not, but if they do decide to call her, I would assume that they're going to have to make their own arrangements.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. If the state decides that they're going to call Ms. Belmonte in their case in chief, I'm quite confident that they will use their resources, investigators, staff, whatever it is, that's in their field of responsibility, and they'll take care of it.
Good.
I didn't get the sense, frankly, from Mr. Mansfield yesterday that it was likely that was going to happen, but if it is, then they got to take care of all the logistics.
Just trying to take care of all the bases, Your Honor.
And that's a good idea. So what else?
I did, Your Honor, I did just have a discussion with Mr. Mansfield. Mr. Ballarado was telling me that normally it's customary, I guess, to tell the defense or tell the prosecution, either one, that what witnesses you're probably going to call the next day, because some take longer prep than others. I was just wondering if we can make such an arrangement.
Well, it is true that in most cases that I've dealt with, professional courtesy extends to alerting one side and the other who's expected to be called as a witness on that particular day. It's not, an ironclad rule, but I put it in the category of professional courtesy. So hopefully that can exist in this particular case. From my vantage point, it seems like thus far there's been respectful dealings between the sides. State of any problem in letting the defendant know what your anticipated...
Judge, the state anticipates after opening the first witness will be calling Deputy Jenna Muller from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. She was the first arriving officer on the scene.
Do you have any others lined up for today?
Yes, Judge. After that, we anticipate calling Detective Marcus Del Valle from the Key West Police Department. And then I think the third witness lined up for today would be Mr. Roger Raugen.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty well today's lineup.
That sounds fine, Your Honor.
All right. And presumably you'll extend them the same courtesy
when
it's your turn. Yep. So then, once the jurors get here, we'll go through preliminary instructions. There's a portion of one instruction where the defendant has the right to choose whether or not he or she wants a particular portion given. These are the preliminary instructions, and this one optional instruction at the defendant's request says, in every criminal proceeding, a defendant has the absolute right to remain silent. At no time is it the duty of a defendant to prove his innocence from the exercise of a defendant's right to remain silent. A jury is not permitted to draw any inference of guilt from the fact that a defendant did not take the witness stand, must not influence your verdict in any manner whatsoever. So that can be given or not. That's the defendant's option. So
obviously, I'm not going to stay silent, Your Honor.
Well, that's not obvious to me, but you've
speak.
That's fine. So can I take it then you don't want that paragraph read?
No, that's fine. You don't have to read that.
All right. So is anybody invoking the rule of sequestration of witnesses? That's the next question. That
we are, Judge.
You are. Okay. So if you're familiar with that rule, Mr. Tucker, but
a little, Your Honor. I wouldn't mind a little explanation from the court. Usually you get educated.
Okay. What that rule says is that witnesses other than a victim cannot be in the courtroom at any time except when they're testifying. So before they've testified and after they've testified, they have to stay out of the courtroom unless, the sides agree that rule can be suspended for that particular person. Otherwise, they can't be sitting in here either before they've testified or after they've testified. Moreover, they are precluded from speaking to anyone about their testimony. Like if there's a waiting room with witnesses, it's prohibited from those witnesses to confer with each other. I think
that would make sense.
Yes, exactly. It's to prevent any kind of comparing testimony or discussing the experience. The only exception to that is that a witness may speak to the attorney, or in this case yourself, for either side, as long as that is done one witness at a time. So they all, you can't have a huddle with the lawyer and 3 or 4 witnesses, but the lawyer, or as again I say, the pro se litigant is entitled to speak to a witness. They're not covered by that rule. It is a serious rule. It can be enforced by contempt of court proceedings, whereby if a person were to violate said rule, they could be subject to being fined, being incarcerated, having their testimony stricken, any and all of the above. You know, at the beginning of a trial, sometimes if there's witnesses here, I'll bring them in and I'll instruct them about it. Other times, I just say, as I'm going to right now, it's the responsibility of the attorneys to let the witnesses know of the invocation of that rule and that they are bound thereby. So, any questions about that?
No, I think I understand you.
All right, so then openings, you know, just remind everyone, opening statement is not evidence, it's not argument, it's basically, as I've heard it described, a roadmap as to what each side expects the evidence will show. So that's the basic focus of an opening statement. It's not testimonial, it's not evidence. What the attorneys say is not to be considered evidence. So we'll, if you've indicated that you, Mr. Tucker, want to make your opening after the state's opening.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. So, and then as I told one of the jurors yesterday, we will give them the opportunity to take notes. I'm not going to have jury questions. That's the court's option. I don't utilize that procedure. It's not mandatory. So that they may take notes, and we'll presumably we have the notepads ready here. Okay. So jurors are due at 9:30, and unless there's something else,
No, sir.
we'll be back just as soon as I'm told that the jurors are all here in the jury room, and hopefully that'll be right around 9:30. Thank you. I don't do an all rise one.
Okay. Paul, can you put me through to Pam downstairs in investigations? Thanks. Who's gonna play our videos for us? 'Cause I don't know how to run that machine. I just talked to him briefly about it. All jurors are present in the courtroom.
Okay, that's great. Let's let everybody work their way to their seats. Please be seated, everyone. Ladies, gentlemen, good morning. Very grateful to see you all here this morning, all 14 of you. Thank you very much for being here and being on time. Over the last 3 days, as I'm sure you all recollect, we had the opportunity to go through the qualifications as jurors and then a rather protracted jury selection process. And then yesterday, you all ended up being seated and sworn as the jury to hear this case, decide this case. I gave you some preliminary instructions and explanation of what to do and not to do over the time between your excusal yesterday and being here today. And I also told you that I was going to give you some formal preliminary instructions the first thing this morning. And so that's what I'm going to do. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected and sworn as the jury to try the case of the state of Florida versus Franklin Tyrone Tucker, case number 2017 CF 841 CK. This is a criminal case. Franklin Tucker is charged with first-degree felony murder, robbery with a deadly weapon while masked, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon while masked, and battery while masked. The definition of these crimes will be explained to you later. The state's charging document, which are called an indictment and an information, are not evidence and are not to be considered by you as any proof of guilt. It is the judge's responsibility to explain the law to you. It is your solemn responsibility to determine if the state proved its accusation beyond a reasonable doubt against Franklin Tucker in accordance with the law that I provide to you. Thus, the province of the jury and the province of the court are well defined, and they do not overlap. This is one of the fundamental principles of our system of justice. Before proceeding further, it will be helpful if you understand how a trial is conducted. At the beginning of the trial, the attorneys will have an opportunity, if they wish, to make an opening statement. The opening statement gives the attorneys a chance to tell you what evidence they believe will be presented during the trial. What the lawyers say is not evidence, they do not consider it as such. Following the opening statements, witnesses will be called to testify or under oath. They will be examined and cross-examined by the attorneys. Documents and other exhibits also may be produced as evidence. After the evidence has been presented, the attorneys will have the opportunity to make their closing arguments. Following the closing arguments by the attorneys, the court will instruct you on the law applicable to the case. Following the closing arguments by the attorneys, the court will conclude with the final instructions. After the final instructions are given, you will then retire to consider your verdict. You should not form any definite or fixed opinion on the merits of the case until you have heard all the evidence, the argument of the lawyers, and the instructions on the law by the judge. Until that time, you should not discuss the case among yourselves. And I dwelled on that point yesterday afternoon. Your verdict must be based solely on the evidence or lack of evidence in the law. I now instruct you not to communicate with anyone, including your fellow jurors, about this case. No communication includes no emailing, text messaging, tweeting, blogging, or any other form of communication. You cannot do any research about the case or look up any information about the case. If you become aware of any violation of any of these rules at all, notify court personnel of the violation. During the course of the trial, the court may take recesses, and you will be permitted to separate and go about your personal affairs. During these recesses, you must not discuss the case with anyone, nor permit anyone to say anything to you or in your presence about the case. If anyone attempts to say anything to you or in your presence about this case, tell him or her that you are on the jury trying the case and ask that person to stop. If he or she persists, leave that person at once and immediately report the matter to the bailiff, who will advise me. All cell phones, computers, tablets, or other types of electronic devices must be turned off while you are in the courtroom. Turned off means the phone or other electronic device is actually off and not in a silent or vibrating mode. You may use these devices during recesses, but even then you may not use your cell phone or electronic device to find out any information about the case or communicate with anyone about the case or the people involved in the case. Do not take photographs, video recordings, or audio recordings of the proceedings or of your fellow jurors. After each recess, please double check to make sure your cell phone or electronic device is turned off. At the end of the case, while you are deliberating, you must not communicate with anyone outside the jury room. You cannot have in the jury room any cell phones, computers, or other electronic devices. If someone needs to contact you in an emergency, the court can receive messages and deliver them to you without delay. A contact phone number will be provided to you, and I believe, in fact, yesterday on that parking pass, the clerk did write down my office phone number, and that can be utilized under these circumstances. You all have that. The case must be tried by you only on the evidence presented during the trial, in your presence and in the presence of the defendant, the attorneys, and the judge. Jurors must not conduct any investigation of their own. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies whether you are in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. You must not visit places mentioned in the trial or use the internet to look at maps or pictures to see any place discussed during the trial. Jurors must not have discussions of any sort with friends or family members about the case or the people and places involved. So do not let even the closest family members make comments to you or ask questions about the trial. In this age of electronic communication, I want to stress again that just as you must not talk about this case face-to-face, you must not talk about this case by using an electronic device. You must not use phones, computers, or other electronic devices to communicate. Do not send or accept any messages relating to this case or your jury service. Do not discuss this case or ask for advice by any means at all, including posting information on an internet website, chat room, or blog. What are the reasons for these rules? These rules are imposed because jurors must decide the case without distraction and only on the evidence presented in the courtroom. If you investigate, research, or make inquiries on your own, the trial judge has no way to make sure that the information you obtain is proper for the case. The parties likewise have no opportunity to dispute or challenge the accuracy of what you find. That is contrary to our judicial system, which assures every party the right to ask questions about and challenge the evidence being considered against it, and to present argument with respect to that evidence. Any independent investigation by a juror unfairly and improperly prevents the parties from having that opportunity our judicial system promises. Any juror who violates these restrictions jeopardizes the fairness of these proceedings, and a mistrial could result that would require the entire trial process to start over. A mistrial is a tremendous expense and inconvenience to the parties, the court, and the taxpayers. If you violate these rules, you may be held in contempt of court and face sanctions such as serving time in jail, paying a fine, or both. The attorneys are trained in the rules of evidence and trial procedure, and it is their duty to make all objections they feel are proper. When an objection is made, you should not speculate on the reason why it is made. Likewise, when an objection is sustained or upheld by me, you must not speculate on what might have occurred had the objection not been sustained, nor what a witness might have said had he or she been permitted to answer. During the trial, it may be necessary to confer with the attorneys out of your hearing to discuss matters that require consideration by me alone. It is impossible to predict when such a conference may be required or how long it will last. When such conferences occur, they will be conducted so as to consume as little of your time as is necessary for a fair and orderly trial of the case. Inherent in the trial is things that come up in every case that just are not for consideration by the jurors. They're for consideration by the judge and convention with the lawyers. So I can handle that in one of two ways. I can call a bench conference, and I think you saw some examples of bench conferences over the last couple of days where I asked the attorneys, defendant to approach, we kind of huddle up, speak in hushed terms, and then go back to our respective positions. That is to handle the situation as quickly and expeditiously as possible. Once in a while, a bench conference is inadequate to deal with whatever the situation is. Maybe I need to look at some things, maybe I need a longer time. Any one of a number of different reasons where I would determine that we're not going to be able to handle it at the bench conference. If that occurs, I'm going to turn to you, and I'm going to say, members of the jury, we've reached one of those points in the trial. Would you kindly go in the jury room? So you go in the jury room, I address, resolve whatever it is that has come up, and then you're brought back out here. I'll try to make it as expeditious as I can, depending upon the issue. I can't tell you what we're talking about, but at least you're going to understand, because I've given you a heads up now, that this is part of a trial, and I haven't forgotten about you, and I'm going to bring you out just as soon as it's possible. If you would like to take notes during the trial, you may do so. On the other hand, of course, you are not required to take notes if you do not want to. That will be left up to you individually. You have been provided with a notepad and a writing utensil for use if you wish to take notes. Each one of you has a new steno pad there. It should have your unique number on it. Pencil. Any notes that you take will be for your personal use. However, you should not take them with you from the courtroom. During recesses, the bailiff will take possession of your notes and will return them to you when we reconvene. So at break time, or at lunchtime, or at the end of the day, just leave the notepad on your chair. We'll collect them and be sure they're secure. After you have completed your deliberations, the bailiff will deliver your notes to me. They will be destroyed. No one will ever read your notes. And I want to fortify this point. I do jury trials quite routinely, regularly. We handle jury notes. We have a standard operating procedure. So we respect the confidences of jury notes. So once the trial is over, they're collected. Any page that has any kind of markings on it whatsoever is simply separated from the spiral binding and fed into the shredder that's in my office. Believe me, I have enough to read, so I'm not going to be looking at jury notes, and we all respect that privacy. If you take notes, do not get so involved in note-taking that you become distracted from the proceedings. Your notes should be used only as aids to your memory. Whether or not you take notes, you should rely on your memory of the evidence, and you should not be unduly influenced by the notes of other jurors. Notes are not entitled to any greater weight than each juror's memory of the evidence. So, with those preliminary instructions, we will now go on to open statements. So, counsel for the state, would you like to make an opening at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. May I please the court?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, Mr. Tucker. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning. My name is Assistant State Attorney David Alvarez, and along with my colleague, Chief Assistant State Attorney Joseph Mansfield, will be conducting the presentation of the evidence on behalf of the state this morning and throughout the course of the trial. I'd like to start off by saying thank you for your participation in this process. It's very important, not only to the state, but to Mr. Tucker as well. So we thank you. And as the judge has already told you, the defendant is charged with a series of crimes. I'm not going to go over them again. We believe the evidence in this case will show that on or about November 17th of 2017, at 5650 Laurel Avenue, Stock Island, Florida, a place commonly known as the Treehouse, the defendant in this case, Mr. Franklin Tyrone Tucker, along with co-defendants Rory Wilson and Travis Johnson, planned and effectuated a robbery at that location, which at the time was the residence of Paula Belmonte. On said date, at approximately 7:45 or a little bit before there, these three individuals, and you'll hear testimony of this, the evidence will show this, that they actually spoke about how they were going to effectuate and pull off this robbery. They drove past the Treehouse once just to stake it out, came back. Defendants Wilson and Tucker put on their dark clothing and grabbed their weapons and their mask, and then got back into Mr. Travis Johnson's truck and drove to the Treehouse. The plan was, as you'll hear and the evidence will show, that Mr. Tucker and Mr. Wilson were going to go up the Treehouse, and the reason it's referred to as the Treehouse, it's a series of stairs that leads, I don't want to describe it as an apartment, but it's a place where people could sleep. It had tarps over it. It really didn't even have roofs. And I believe the victims in the case, Ms. Belmonte and Mr. Raggett, will explain that in detail, as well as some of the deputies that you'll hear from. But in the commission of committing this robbery, defendants Tucker, this actual defendant, Mr. Tucker and Mr. Wilson, went up into the Treehouse and held Ms. Belmonte and Mr. Raggett at knife point. Ms. Belmonte was held at knife point with a knife to her throat. During the commission of this robbery, her throat was slashed, and you will see pictures of her injuries during the course of this case. The state is going to be introducing photos of that. Mr. Raggett was also held at knife point. He was beaten, punched several times. He'll actually testify that he was knocked back into a tarp. At this time of the year, I believe in November, it wasn't quite fully dark yet. It was dusk, the sun was setting, but they were able to discern that the alleged perpetrators were coming up the stairs, and eventually what happened. In the process of committing this alleged crime, obviously in fear of their lives, Ms. Belmonte and Mr. Raggett were screaming in fear for their lives, and unfortunately the crimes didn't stop there. A neighbor, Mr. Matthew Bonnett, heard the screams and decided to render aid, or at least try to assist in somehow. As he was coming up the stairs, the evidence will show that Mr. Tucker and Mr. Wilson confronted him. There was a struggle that ensued, and Mr. Bonnett was stabbed numerous times and eventually died from these injuries. The defendants then fled the scene. Defendant Johnson, who was waiting in his dark-colored pickup truck, the getaway driver, noticing that there was a commotion going on, decided to leave his two accomplices and drives away. They ultimately meet up at a warehouse where they were all residing together, probably about, I want to say about 500 or 600 feet from the actual Treehouse, where an argument ensued, and Mr. Johnson decided to walk down to the Tom Tom to get some cigarettes, where he met up with Mr. Detroit Wilson, Mr. Rory Wilson. You're going to hear from numerous witnesses during the state's presentation, and shall be presented with numerous exhibits of evidence for your review and consideration in this case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the state is absolutely confident that at the conclusion of this matter, you will find that the defendant, Franklin Tyrone Tucker, is guilty as charged in the indictment and the amended information. Thank you.
Tucker, would you like to make an opening statement at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you may do so.
was a nice presentation. I say, by the way, good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. That was quite the story. But the problem is nothing in that story tells you what evidence they have, what evidence they're going to show. You know, how are they going to actually tie me into that story? Anyway, you know, the prosecution, you know, tells that story, but the problem is very little of that story is true. That's the bottom line. And, you know, yes, about the only thing that was true in that story is, yes, John Travis Johnson was there. That's a fact, right? This state witness, you know, they keep on saying he's the getaway driver, right? Out of all the evidence...
Object argumentative.
Yeah, I'm going to sustain the objection. Again, this is an opportunity to talk about what the evidence you expect will show.
Oh, but that's where I'm going, Your Honor.
Okay.
Just give me a second, I'll get right there. I was actually just getting to that point. Out of all the evidence they show, all the witnesses they bring, where are they going to show he's the getaway driver? That's what you need to look at, right? Because the defense, you know, we can show all day there is no evidence saying he was a getaway driver. We can also show that there's evidence that says otherwise. And that's what we do intend to prove. As far as the evidence we intend to put on, we're going to, you know, put on the surviving victim, Ms. Paula Bellamont, who says, 100% sure it wasn't me that night. 100%. Now, just as Mr. Alvarez said, you know, this is a woman who was brutally beaten, robbed, had her throat slit, you know, literally sat there and watched her friend get murdered viciously. But yet she is testifying on my side. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, what motivation could she have? Anyway, going down the line here, we also intend on going ahead and, you know, calling a few other witnesses here. The next one after that is probably going to be Mrs. Angela Oslowski. Again, talking about evidence, right? Well, this is the woman who did the FDLE reports, the forensic evidence that, you know, that they submitted, right? All the evidence comes back. None of my DNA, none of my, my blood, none of my fingerprints, none of that stuff. Okay? So, no forensic evidence, right? Okay? Surviving victim says it wasn't me. Okay, so we'll go on down from there. The next one, Mr. Tom Walker from Internal Affairs, right? Now, Mr. Tom Walker goes ahead and investigates the investigation because of a complaint I made, right? A complaint that comes back sustained, right? Comes back as sustained for an investigation that was so poor, so poorly executed. 208 pieces of evidence were found to be mishandled by the MCSO, including DNA, including physical evidence, including video. 208 pieces of evidence. Now, he also goes ahead and goes beyond that. He goes on to show that, you know, that the original affidavit that was used to arrest me, the one that actually, you know, everybody relies on as far as what the police say happened, right? He goes ahead and investigates that. Unfortunately, guess what? That's not accurate either, according to him. That he actually goes ahead and investigates this and finds out that the original affidavit that was used to indict me, used to give me these charges and put me in front of you people, right? Not that I don't like you, but...
Objection, argumentative again here.
Well, I'll overrule that objection.
No, but yes, you know, it put me here. And so he'll go ahead and show that that isn't exactly accurate. That it's filled with inaccuracies. It also has what they call material omissions. You know, stuff that would be an exculpatory evidence to suggest that I wasn't there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and interview Mr. Tom Walker. We'll go ahead and put him on the stand. Then after that, we have Lieutenant Colonel Chad Scabilia. Right? He's actually one of the higher-ups in the MCSO. I don't know how familiar the jury is with that, right? I know we all know Rick Ramsey, you know, but do we know Mr. Scabilia? Probably not. But he is one of the higher-ups in the MCSO. He's in charge of their operations. He decides as of January of 2019, he's going to go ahead and do an investigation of the entire major crimes unit, right? He's afraid that they're not living up to par. That's a good supervisor.
Object and ask for sidebar.
Okay.
I can go with you on the outside, yes.
First of all, I don't believe any of this is going to be coming in. It's not going to be relevant to this investigation or this presentation. And so what he's doing is opening the door to this salacious information.
One second, I'm going to wait till the state settles in. I'm also going to advise the jury that I have overruled the objection, but I do want to remind you that this is opening statement. It's not evidence in the case, and it may or may not reflect what ultimately is evidence, and it will be up to you to decide the case based on the evidence. So keep that in mind, that this, what I told you, the statements of the attorneys is not evidence. So with that, let the defendant proceed with his opening.
Thanks. I'd also like to apologize for my tone. Obviously, I'm a little upset. You might understand. I don't know if you do, but you might understand. Anyway, continuing forward, back to Lieutenant Colonel Scabilia. His report, he goes ahead and he finds that there are a number of investigations in the Major Crimes Unit that have not been sufficiently investigated, according to him. One of them, well, not one of them, out of the many that he finds, and Miss Danielle Malone, who we intend on putting on the stand, and to go ahead with this investigation. Yes, she's found to have, out of 17 active cases, 11 of them come up as insufficient, which we would argue mine is one of those. So we have quite a bit of evidence. We have quite a bit of evidence. I know that Mr. Mansfield asked you if you could convict me on one piece of evidence. Maybe. That's true. I could see that, depending on what the evidence is. You got a video of me doing something, or, I could see that. But what he failed to say is, okay, could you convict me on one piece of evidence when there's a lot of evidence that says something else? That's the question. And that's what we're going to try and get to with the defense, right? We're going to bring up witnesses, we're going to bring up evidence, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to challenge everything that the state is saying here, because I know it's not true. So, in the end, that's what we're looking for here, right? We're looking for the truth, and they can present their case, I'll present mine, and we'll see what comes out as true. And then you guys can decide. And I know from looking at all of you and from going through our voir dire, yes, you'll decide correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. So, jury, you've now heard opening statements from both the state and the defense. So now we start with the evidentiary portion of the proceedings, and the state has the opportunity to go first. So you prepared to call your first witness in your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. State would call Deputy Jenna Muller from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
All right, Deputy Jenna Muller.
It's okay.
Wherever the podium suits you, a broad range is fine. As long as comfortable, as long as the other side's able to have a clear view of the witness stand and hear, that's fine. Ma'am, if you please step forward right through the gate there. Approach the deputy who's in front of the witness stand here. That's good. Would you stop right there, turn, face the clerk, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in the cause now and here shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, please have a seat on the witness stand, loudly and clearly, so everyone is able to hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and for the jury, please.
Jenna Muller,
And where are you currently employed?
Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
In what capacity are you employed with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office?
I am the Road Patrol Sergeant in District 1.
How long have you been doing that, Ms. Deputy Muller?
As a sergeant
Yes,
since July, I believe.
ma'am. And in total with the Sheriff's Department?
I got hired in January of 2016.
2016, okay. I'd like to direct your attention to November 17th of 2017. Were you employed with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office on that date?
I was.
And in what capacity were you working with them at that time?
I was the deputy on Road Patrol in District 1.
And at some point on that date, I want to say at approximately 7:45, 8 o'clock, did you have an opportunity to respond to 5650 Laurel Avenue, commonly known as the Treehouse?
Yes, I believe the original call was for me to go to the CVS right in front of that address.
Okay, and the CVS, how far is it away from the 5650 Laurel Avenue?
Across the street.
Literally across the street?
Yes.
Okay, and could you please describe for the jury what happened? What happened when you got there?
So I responded to the CVS. The call was that there was a man there making excited statements, something along the lines of maybe his friends were hurt. I don't remember the exact dispatch. So I arrived there, made contact with a male who was shirtless, and he began telling me that of this incident, a stabbing that occurred, and that it occurred at the Treehouse.
Okay, and did you ultimately respond to the Treehouse?
I did.
Were you the first surviving officer on the scene?
I was.
Could you please describe for the jury what you observed when you arrived?
So on arrival, I could hear, I parked my patrol vehicle out front of the property, and I could hear someone screaming from what ended up being the top of the treehouse. I made my way onto the property, up the stairs, and that's where I encountered the first victim laying face down on the stairs, unresponsive. I went past him to the victim that was yelling, and she was at the very top of the treehouse with a large wound to her neck, and I believe her hand as well.
Now, a lot of people are interested, including myself. Could you describe why do they call this residence the Treehouse?
So it was legit a treehouse. It was almost like a outdoor platform tower. I believe there was 2 levels and stairs going up all the way to the top, and it was essentially a treehouse. It was just two platforms.
Did it have a roof or anything of that nature?
I think maybe part of it sort of had some sort of makeshift roof, but I don't remember exactly.
Running electricity?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, very well. You indicated the first victim you encountered was non-responsive.
Correct.
Did you call for medical assistance?
Yes.
And did they ultimately arrive there?
Yes.
Okay, and then you proceeded upstairs, and who did you come into contact with upstairs? Do you remember?
Yes, that was Miss Paula Belmonte.
And what was her condition like?
She was very excitable, yelling, screaming. You know, and she had the large wound on her neck. I believe I found a towel nearby or something and applied pressure, had her hold on that while I went back to try to assist the first victim I had encountered.
Yes.
Permission to approach the witness?
Yes.
What I'd like to show you is in previous marked states exhibit A3 for identification. And actually take a look at it. You had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Did they accurately and correctly reflect the entrance and the stairs of the treehouse?
Yes.
Permission to introduce this to evidence, Judge, I don't believe there's an objection.
Any objection? Mr. Tucker, any objection to
No,
this
sir, I'm sorry.
exhibit?
Let me pull the microphone down. No, sir.
All right, so we'll admit it as states one, it's a composite. 1A through C. We just need the clerk to mark it, please. What, Mr. Alvarez, we can bring it up to the clerk so we can get it marked as states 1A, C composite.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Permission to publish to the jury argument?
Yes.
Thank you. Deputy Mullen, while the jury is looking at the photos, could you kind of describe what they're looking at? Is that the steps leading into the treehouse?
Yes, so if I remember correctly, it was essentially like one flight of stairs and then almost like a landing platform and then another flight. And then I don't recall if there was a turn at the very end up to the top, but there may have been.
And just so I'm clear, you indicated that you encountered the first victim, which was non-responsive on the first landing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One moment, Your Honor.
All right.
I know the jurors are reviewing the state's first exhibit, but the state has no further questions for Deputy Mullen at this time.
All right, so before we have cross-examination, we'll let the jurors, each of them, have an opportunity to review the exhibit, and then we'll give cross-examination opportunity. now had an opportunity to review the exhibits. We can return them, or the exhibit, and we can return them to the clerk. State's completed direct examination. Mr. Tucker, did you care to cross-examine the witness?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you for coming. It's been a while. But, okay, that night, do you remember approximately what time? You know, what time you arrived on scene, what time you got to the treehouse?
I don't recall the exact time, no.
Just, how about approximately? You got anything in there?
Want to say maybe it was like, I'd be guessing. I think it's like, 8 p.m., something like that. But
We can always look at it.
You both need to keep your voices up, please.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Your Honor. Okay, so you get to the treehouse, and Paul's the second victim that you come across, correct? It's you come across Matt first.
Correct.
Okay. And how long before backup shows up? Approximately.
Approximately like 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes. Another deputy showed up to assist me with clearing the property.
Okay. And did you guys actually clear the property, check, make sure there's no more suspects, anything like that?
I had done that prior to the deputy arriving on scene.
Okay. Would that be on your body cam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, check that out. Okay, so now you're at the property. You've done your sweep. You've got backup, correct? And I would assume the ambulance shows up before or after that?
Yes, sir. The ambulance showed up minutes after I got there.
Minutes after you got there. I seem to remember that too. Okay. Now, let's see. After that, what did you do after that? After you went ahead and cleared the property, after the ambulance came, they took Paul to the hospital, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct.
So what was your duty after that?
I remained on scene. I started a crime scene log. I believe I taped off the immediate structure of the treehouse itself, and then also the entrance to the property.
Okay.
I asked anybody who was in the property to come outside of the property. I tried to identify everybody that was on scene or that I came into contact with. That was essentially.
You secured the scene, basically,
Yeah.
right? You know, and what does securing the scene? What does that actually entail? What is it? You know, why do we do that?
To not contaminate the scene, to not have people in and out, stuff like that.
Okay. Just to make sure that the evidence stays there, it stays, doesn't get
Scene
walked away
safety.
with or tainted, right?
Correct.
You
Scene
know.
safety, make sure everything's.
Right, and safety, obviously, right? Okay, and now, was there evidence just found on property?
No, I believe, no. There was evidence found on the street itself.
Okay, was that ever blocked off? Was it ever roped off so that the evidence would stay secure?
Yes, once other units detectives got to the scene, at one point they did block off most of the street, from what I recall.
Okay, and about how long did that take
For them to arrive, or
for them to block off the street?
I don't recall.
Okay, do you remember anybody walking away with evidence?
Walking away with the
Like
evidence?
picking up evidence off the street and walking away with it?
The only person I saw that handled evidence would be the crime scene tech from Key West.
Okay, that would be
Detective Mitchell.
Yeah, if I remember right. Okay.
Yes.
And so he was the one who handled the evidence once he got there, right?
In my presence, yes.
Okay. And, and then after that, what did you do after that? I know you started a crime scene log, you secured the scene, at least the immediate scene, right? The
Correct.
treehouse itself.
Correct.
And then what did you do after that?
I believe I, assisted the detectives on scene with what they needed. We walked the street, Laurel Avenue, looking for any additional evidence.
Okay.
I did locate a $100 bill on the street. That's what Detective Mitchell came and photographed and collected. And I believe there was other individual pieces that were located. I didn't locate them directly.
But they're basically all the way down the street, right?
From what I recall, it was, yes, going down the street.
Sure. Okay, so you're looking for evidence after that. That's, you know, you're basically searching for evidence, you know, checking the scene, making sure you guys are covering, you know, the whole street now looking for the evidence, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you get to the scene, okay, and, you know, was I there? Correct. Just we'll go for that right there. Was I present when you got there?
I did not see you, no.
Yeah, okay. And, you know, is there any evidence that I was there?
I did
I
not
mean,
see
that
you
you
there.
know,
So
you know of, right? Okay. All right, so nothing there. Now, okay, and you said other people started showing up, you know, other detectives, other, you know, officers started showing up. You know, was it Detective Mitchell from Key West PD? He shows up for the forensics, correct?
he did show up, yes.
Okay. And then who else showed up?
Let's see. At the time, Captain Phelps, Detective Pitcher, Detective Malone, Lieutenant Kellenberger, Detective Fernandez, possibly Captain Smith.
It's quite a few officers, right?
Yes, sir.
Most of them major ranking officers, if I remember correctly, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you said your first encounter was with Todd O'Quinn, correct? With the skinny white guy who ran out.
I believe his name was Todd O'Quinn.
Todd
yes.
O'Quinn,
Yeah.
Todd Sumner O'Quinn is his name. That's his full name. So he's the one who approached you first, but he's not the one who called 911, but he's the one who approached you, correct?
Correct. I believe he was yelling in front of CVS, and some other bystanders contacted 911.
Okay. And what was he saying to you? Do you remember?
For the exact verbatim, I would have to refer to my body
Sure.
cam.
You know, it's been a long time. I
has
understand.
been.
Believe me, I understand.
But he told me that there was some sort of altercation. I believe he said he saw Mr. Bonnett being stabbed, and he saw a white suspect and a black suspect.
Do you remember the circumstances being, you know, for the white suspect? You know, the white suspect. Do you remember any of what he said about him?
Again, I would have to refer to the body cam because that would give an exact recording.
Right. Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah.
And you may do that. We'll see. Now, prior to all this happening, you know, before you even got to the treehouse, before you even got the call, what were you doing before then?
I believe I was patrolling the trap yard in the area called La Curva prior to.
An area called what? I'm sorry.
It's called La Curva. It's a trap yard.
Oh,
on
La Curva?
Fifth
Yeah, I
Avenue.
know La Curva.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe I was patrolling there prior to getting the call.
Okay. Okay. And how long would you say you were doing that?
Again, it would be a guess, but approximately 15, 20 minutes.
Were you ever in the CVS parking lot that night?
I could have been prior to
Do
that.
you know approximately how long?
No.
What if I told you maybe hours? Maybe an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours? Just prior to the crime?
Well, I could be, yeah.
Okay, just checking. Okay. And did you go into CVS that night at all?
Well, I don't have a direct recollection, but if I was there, I probably went in and maybe got snacks or.
Yeah,
You know,
see, I could see that. I could definitely see that. Okay. All right, so we know where you were before. We know where you went afterwards. And, okay, so you're searching and everybody else shows up and they start searching, right? What about, you know, the other investigators? What are they doing? Because, you know, were they all searching on Laurel or did they, you know, go other places? I mean, did they do anything else that you know of?
I know some units responded to a property on 2nd, but I wasn't there. I don't know who responded.
Was it the warehouse property?
Yes.
Okay, so it was the warehouse property. Now, when I say the warehouse property, you know, you and I know what that means. I'm not sure the jury knows what that means. It's on 2nd Street. Could you please just describe it for them just so that they have an understanding of it?
Yes, it's on 2nd Street in Stock Island. It's essentially a big warehouse. It's like an aluminum or metal sided building, pretty large, and I believe there's like, it's sectioned off, or at least it is now, into separate areas.
Now, what was the interest at Second Street, or the Second Street warehouse? Do you know?
I believe at the time, the information that I was able to put out and receive from the victim was that there was a suspect that possibly resided there.
Ended up being true, did it?
I actually don't know if they found him. I don't know the results.
Did you show up for was it they brought Rory Wilson in? Were you there for that?
No,
I
sir.
know that people were masked, so it was hard to decide. I don't know whether you were there or not, you know, so I'm just asking.
Yes, I was not.
Okay, just checking. Okay, so you got, you know, there are units at the Second Street warehouse, but you're not one of them. You're still back at the.
I stayed at the scene the whole time.
Okay, you're at the scene. Okay, so we'll go ahead. Okay, is there any other involvement you had in the investigation beyond, you know, that initial night?
The very next night, I was on patrol again, and I got called again by dispatch to a residence at the end of the road because they had found a knife in their yard.
Okay, and where was? Do you remember? You know, what was it in the mobile home park, or was it? You know.
Yes, at the time there was a mobile home park there called Ocean's Edge.
Okay.
Water's Edge.
Water's Edge.
One of
Yeah,
the Water's Edge.
You're absolutely correct. I'm sorry.
And it was one of the trailers that was on, I guess, is that 2nd Street, right at the end of Laurel Avenue there.
Yeah, I seem to remember which one. Now, did you stay there and collect the knife, or did somebody else come and do that?
No, I responded. I saw the knife, and I contacted Detective Pitcher at the time, I believe, was the lead detective, and then Key West Detective Mitchell came and collected the knife.
Now, at the crime scene, who would you say was actually in charge of the crime scene? Who was actually running the show?
I know that Key West PD Detective Mitchell was doing the collection, but
For
beyond
the forensics part, yeah.
yeah, beyond that, I don't know who.
I mean,
was running.
normally it would have been Sergeant Kellenberger's job, correct? I mean, I know a little bit about MCS protocol, MCSO protocol. I don't know.
He would be
And I don't know nearly as much as you, obviously. So.
He would be the supervisor of the.
He would have been the supervisor, right? Okay, and you know, but there were people there above him, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did people from the state attorney's office show up at the crime scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how about, did they ever have a suspect at the crime scene?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Do you remember Anathea Clay?
I believe she showed up on a bicycle at one point.
Okay, was she a suspect in the crime?
Not that I'm aware of. I know she was mentioned by Miss Belmonte that she knew the suspect.
Okay, but I'm not trying to tell you what to say or anything like that. I'm just trying to see if we can both remember here, because if I remember correctly, didn't Paula come out of the treehouse when she's holding her neck and screaming? Isn't that the first name that comes out of her?
I'm going to sustain it. That's,
Okay.
Fact's not an evidence.
Okay. Anyway, you do remember the Anathea, that she was mentioned by Paula.
Yes.
Okay. And she was eventually brought to the crime scene, correct?
I remember her showing up on a bicycle.
Okay. And did anybody get a statement?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I'm not saying you do. I'm just, because I don't know which officers did everything, so I just trying to get my knowledge here. So you don't know whether anybody took a statement from her.
Objection asked and answered.
I'll overrule the objection.
All right, that was just rhetorical. I'm sorry. But she wasn't arrested, correct? Or that you know of?
Not that I know of on the scene, no.
And did you have any other parts in this investigation beyond those initial days?
Yes. A few days later.
Okay, a few days later, and...
I was on shift again, and I got called to assist with arresting you.
Oh, thanks. Whatever. I'm not going to hold it against you.
I appreciate it.
Now, and then well beyond that, was there anything else you did for this investigation?
Yes, it was much later in the investigation. I was actually a detective at the time, and I was a plainclothes detective. I was, my partner and I at the time were asked to locate Miss Anthea Clay. And then separately, my partner and I at one time, sorry, went to Miami to pair up with, our whole unit did,
Right.
to pair up with Miami-Dade detectives in an attempt to locate another person to serve a subpoena. My involvement with that, though, was literally show up, and then we were dismissed, so we
Gotcha.
went home.
So just go there, go home.
Yeah, I didn't have
I'm
much.
sorry about
involvement
that.
with
I'm sure it wasn't fun. Okay, but the Anthea Clay thing, back to that one. So what was the intention of when you went to go, engage Anthea on this time?
At the time, Captain Phelps was the boss of the unit I was in, like higher ranking.
Right, yeah.
And she asked my partner and I for assistance with locating Miss Anthea Clay. And she knew, or she had an idea of where she lived or would be seen. So we were plain clothes, so we set up and we watched. And when we located her, the captain made contact with her, and I believe she brought her in for interview.
Right. And did she act surprised or anything like that to see you guys? Or?
I don't recall.
And you remember being brought in for the interview. Were you there for any of it? Or?
I did not. I waited outside.
Okay. So that's the extent of your involvement, though, that I know of, correct?
As best as I can recall right now, yes.
And that you know of. Okay, great. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Miss Detective. Sorry, Detective. I want to call you Detective because I remember you being a detective before,
Yes,
too.
sir.
Deputy Mueller. Thank you.
Is there a redirect examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Deputy Mueller, good morning again. Mr. Tucker asked you about the actual time that you arrived on scene and were dispatched. And I know at this point it's been, 6 years. Is there anything that would refresh your recollection if you take a look at it, maybe your report?
Either my report or my body cam would very much refresh my recollection.
Just give me a second. You're fine.
Commissioner Pro, Your Honor.
Yes.
Let me show you a copy of the report. See if that refreshes your recollection regarding at what time you were dispatched and arrived.
Yes, sir.
When you've had your recollection refreshed, say so, and then the prosecutor can retrieve the report and you can testify from your refreshed recollection.
Yes, sir. I'm refreshed.
And could you please describe to the jury exactly what time you were dispatched and arrived?
I was dispatched at 2018.
Okay, and in layman's terms, what
That
time?
is 8:18 p.m.
Okay, very well. Mr. Tucker asked you if he was on the scene when you arrived. Was Rory Wilson there?
Not that I recall, no.
Was Travis Johnson there?
No, sir.
Were any of the alleged perpetrators there?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
You indicated that on the second night you were on duty, correct?
Correct.
And you dispatched, I guess, to a mobile home that was referred to as Water's Edge?
The trailer park itself is, yeah.
Okay.
Or was.
And that's where the knife...
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Judge. I have nothing further.
Right. So, may this witness be excused, or is she held subject to recall?
She may be excused, Your Honor.
Okay.
I would
Under
agree.
your-
I would agree, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can step down. Be
Thank you, sir.
excused. So, members of the jury, I think this is a good time for our morning break. So let's talk about the basic ground rules for the break. You don't have to stay in the jury room. If you want to walk around a little bit, stretch outside the jury room, you may do so. Just let the bailiffs know who wants to go outside the jury room. They will escort you through the secure portion of the courthouse. You can then When it's time, be back in the jury assembly room and the bailiffs will bring you back. During the break, whether you stay in the jury room or whether you go outside, the rules, the instructions that I've given you about, exposure to information, discussions, conversations, all those things that you've heard so often, they remain in effect. So we're going to break until 10:55. You can leave your notepads right there on the chairs, and we'll be back, and the state will have the opportunity to call their next witness. him that they're having a difficult time hearing you. So,
I'll try to speak into the microphone. I'll try to speak into the microphone, Your Honor.
definitely be to your benefit to speak louder or into the mic, because
Does this sound better, Your Honor? Actually, is there any way to turn this up?
that sounds better. I think it's probably they're referring to when you're at the podium and questioning witnesses, and you tend to be a bit soft-spoken, so.
Okay, I'll try and speak louder.
Yeah. All right, so we've got all the jurors in the jury room. State's got their next witness standing by.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so let's bring the jurors back.
All jurors in the court, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. Welcome back to the courtroom, members of the jury. I hope you enjoyed your break. At this particular point in time, we're back on the record. We're going to resume with presentation of the state's case in chief. So, counsel, your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the state will call Detective Marcus Del Valle from U.S. Police Department.
All right, Detective Marcus Del Valle. Sir, if you'd please come forward through the gate, approach the deputy right in front of the witness stand there. Oh, a bit closer there. That's good. Turn, face the clerk, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Please have a seat on the witness stand.
Permission to proceed, Your Honor.
Yes.
Detective, good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the jury, please.
Marcus Del Valle. Last name is Delvalle.
And how are you currently employed?
Excuse me.
Where are you currently employed?
City of Key West Police Department.
And how long have you been employed with the City of Key West Police Department?
Since 2012, and prior to that, a year and a half as a reserve officer.
Okay. And I'd like to direct your attention to November 17th of 2017. Were you working as a detective at that time?
Yes.
And did you have an opportunity to respond out to alleged incident in Stock Island?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was your role out there?
I was called in. I was off that day, but I was called in by the sergeant on the unit. There had been an incident that occurred, and they needed somebody to process the scene. We already had one detective out there that worked for QS Police, and they needed a second one, so I responded to assist him in processing the scene.
Do you remember what the name of that other detective was?
Stephen Mitchell.
Okay, very well. Please describe for the jury your responsibilities and duties in processing the scene. What does that entail?
I'm one of the field evidence technicians. In processing the scene is picking up evidence, documented evidence, taking measurements and whatever needs to be done to processing, which includes also photographing the scene.
Okay. When you responded there, did you respond to what's commonly referred to as a treehouse?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did you have an opportunity to walk through the scene?
Briefly, I did. When I got there, I met up with Detective Mitchell, and he gave me a little tour of what was going on. There was two scenes, one outside, one inside. I took a walk through the treehouse, which was a wooden structure, and walked through. He showed me what was going on so I could get just of what was going on. And yes, I did walk through it.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm not assuming these are the same, but let's just check just to make sure. Okay. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure. Huh, thank you. Appreciate that. One more, right? Or is that the last one? That's the last one. Yeah, we're good. Nope.
Permission to approach the witness.
Yes.
Detective Devine, I'd like to show you previously marked State's Exhibit B 12 for identification, and ask you to take a look at those photos. Please let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, that's beginning with the first photo is going to be the interior looking out of the property.
Okay.
And then the rest of it's going to be going up the stairs up to the area where they had the couch located at. We walked through that. I walked up the staircase and then back up down, and then that was pretty much what I'd done on that portion of the treehouse itself.
Would it be safe to say that's the walkthrough portion, correct?
Yes, yeah, it was the walkthrough that I'd done.
And do they accurately and fairly depict the way the treehouse looked on the night of the incident?
Yes, absolutely.
Point at this stage, Judge, we move these into evidence as State's number 2. I don't believe there's an objection.
Any objection?
Nope.
All right, no, let's get them marked. We'll admit the ID exhibit into evidence as the state's 2A through.
Looks like 8 through 12.
It's going to be,
8 through 2A to 2L.
all right. Composite exhibit for state 2A through L. Admitted into evidence.
Detective Del Valle, while the clerk is marking that, a couple of questions. Do you remember what time you responded, more or less, that evening?
To the minute I can, it was later. It was late afternoon, like maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. I can't remember exact time.
You were toward the end of the day, correct?
It was towards the end of the day, yes, sir.
Yes.
Detective Defiance, next shade the first photograph here. Is that the entrance to the actual treehouse?
That's the entrance into the yard.
To the yard?
Yes, and this is going to be the yard here.
And then
That's going up to, that's, I think that's the first floor of the treehouse that's going
You
up.
got to try to speak up, please.
I'm sorry, sir. That's the first floor. That's the stairs going up to the first floor. That's part of the deck. I don't know exactly which part, but that's part of the deck. The stairs going up again. So it was three sets, I believe it was 3 sets. And that's the area where they were staying at.
it's like a makeshift bed.
Yeah, makeshift bed that they had, like a little common area that they were staying at. Same, this is all the same floor.
Makeshift living areas, correct?
Yes, sir. And that same thing there, the bed in the back that they were staying at.
Commissioner Public Seats Focus, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you. Does the treehouse have running water or electricity?
I don't think it had any no running water and no, I know for sure no electricity.
Okay. Now, that was your first part of your investigation, just taking a walkthrough and just kind of surveying what was going on inside and make sure everything was okay and secured. You would agree with me that one of your responsibilities as a crime scene investigator is to secure the scene and make sure that the scene is secured and the evidence, if there's any, would be safe, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please explain for the jury what was your next part in this investigation.
Next part, when just to clarify, when I arrived on scene, the sheriff's department already had the scene secured with crime scene tape, and it was kind of isolated to that area where it happened at. I went outside. There was 2 scenes. One was the inside of the property, which Detective Mitchell processed. The second portion of that was the outside, which was the street, all the way down to running east on the main street. So I started picking up evidence that was laying in the street that was part of the scene. That was my primary task in that scene, was collecting the outside evidence.
Do you remember what type of evidence you collected on the outside of the scene?
Yeah, there was, prior to me getting there, was Detective Mitchell collected a $100 bill that was laying outside. He showed it to me, showed me where it was at. Then I went down the street. I collected numerous amount of change, quarters, dimes, nickels. There was a lot of personal items as far as makeup that was strewn through the whole street that I started marking and photographing and collecting. But it was mainly personal items, and it appeared to be like from possibly a female's purse.
Did you ever have an opportunity to speak to Ms. Belmonte?
I spoke to no one on the scene.
Okay. Commissioner Brooks, witness, Your Honor.
Yes?
Detective Provide, I'd like to show you what's been previously warranted. That states C9 for identification. I'm going to ask you to take a look at those and see if you recognize this.
Yes, that's the same property, and that's the mailbox going to the property.
Is that the outside, the interior?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And do they fairly and accurately reflect the outside and exterior of the property as they were on the evening in question?
Yes, sir.
Permission to stay with them to move this and that and try.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Admit that exhibit is states next in order, which I believe would be 3A through L.
What are the next things you did on this case? That evening?
That evening was collect all the items that were strewn on the street. We photographed it, like I said, photographed it, documented it, collected it, packaged it, and then we passed it on to the detectives that were with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office that were working the case.
And the street you referred to, what street was that?
I believe Laurel?
Laurel?
Yes, sir.
Avenue? Okay.
Could we get the two that's sitting on the rail, if we're finished?
Yes.
Those, we can bring those over to the clerk and, thank you. We've got 3 marked now.
Permission to focus.
Yes?
Yes, sir. Thank you. What time did you finish on the scene that evening? Do you remember?
That evening, I believe it was like 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. It was late.
Did you have an opportunity to go back the next day, or did you need to go back the next day for anything?
The next day I did go back. It was later, excuse me, later in the afternoon. I did go back. Detective Mitchell called me. He had been called out because they had found some other evidence in a yard. So I responded and assisted Detective Mitchell as he collected some evidence.
Okay, let's hold it right there and let him finish.
Okay.
Valley, I'm sorry. The next day you went back out, because did you received a call from Detective Mitchell?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that call?
Sheriff Department, I guess, had gotten a call from a gentleman that owned a trailer on the property, that he had found possible evidence in his yard off of Laurel Avenue. If you go down, I guess to the east, to the end of the street, there's a trailer there at the time, and he had called that he had found evidence, which was a knife.
Okay, so did you respond to the scene?
Yes, I responded there and met up with Detective Mitchell, who was already on the scene. He was in the process of taking pictures of the knife that was in a planter.
So you assisted Detective Mitchell in recovering the knife?
Yes, sir.
And do you know exactly where the knife was located on the
The
property?
knife was located on this gentleman's property. As you walk into the property, to the left of the property, there was like a planter, and the knife was sitting inside of the planter.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
Detective Delgado, I'd like to show you in previously marked the state's D5 for identification and entry. Take a look at those photographs. Hope you recognize them.
Yes, sir.
And what are those pictures of?
This is the knife that was inside of the planter. It is still sitting in the planter, but it's a knife that did have what appeared to have blood on it.
Is that the knife you recovered or you assisted?
Yeah, I assisted. Yes, sir.
That you recovered on the scene the next day?
Yes, sir.
And it fairly accurately reflects the description and the picture of the knife?
Yes, absolutely.
This is time to move the exhibit into evidence. It states, I want to say, 4.
Any objection?
No.
Permission to publish.
Well, let's admit it as 4, and we have, it's a composite with how many parts? 4A through E.
Publish to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Detective Devine, after you and Detective Mitchell secured the knife, what did you do with the knife?
Knife was collected. It was boxed, and the Detective Mitchell passed it on to the Monroe County Sheriff's Office detectives with a proper chain of command, custody form and all that.
Do you have any other involvement in this case as far as investigation?
As far as investigation, that was it. Prior to, yeah, that was it. We collected that, and I think that was it. Detective Mitchell did collect some stuff before I got there, but I wasn't present for that.
Very well. Thank you for your testimony. I have no further questions, Your Honor. Stay with Lieutenant.
Cross-examination.
Detective DeValier, right?
Yes, sir.
We just met outside, right? We just introduced ourselves. First time I've ever met you, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Now, that investigation, I remember a lot about Stephen Mitchell and what he did. I wasn't sure how much you were there for. Was there any problems with gathering any of the evidence?
No problems at all.
What about tire tracks from the truck?
Tire tracks, yeah, he took a sample of the tire tracks, and due to the kit that we used that was out of date, and it didn't adhere to the tire track that was next to Cosmos. Yes,
Next to the marine.
But that was
it's a marina, or
Yes,
is it a
sir.
marina or a marine store?
Marina. I believe
Marina,
they
okay.
work on engines.
But there were tire tracks there. You guys tried to get it.
Yes, and Detective Mitchell tried to pick them up. Adhere them. It's a form that you put on there, and it's you use like plaster of Paris, put it on, mix it with water. He's the one that done all that process of doing it, but it didn't adhere to it, so he wasn't able to pick nothing up.
That's good to know. I asked Deputy Mueller, same thing. You said when you got there, they had already blocked off the street? Or was it
Yes,
still
the
just
street
the
was,
street? Or was it still
everything
the
was,
street?
yes, the scene was secured and blocked off.
Okay, it was already secured, blocked off?
Yes, sir.
So you weren't there prior to that?
Prior,
To them blocking off the street?
no, the street, when I got there,
Right.
scene was already blocked off and secured.
Okay.
I was not there.
No pedestrians going
Wait,
through?
wait, we gotta
Yeah.
take one at a
I'm sorry.
time, so
Yes, sir.
let him finish, and so we can keep it
Yeah.
separated. Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
When I got there, that I was called out,
Mm-hmm.
scene was secured, there was yellow tape up, and they had police, deputies were already securing the scene, so I did not get there at the beginning of the call.
Okay. Just checking, because, again, I wasn't there, so I don't know. How about, did you guys make sure you got all the evidence, from the Treehouse, or was there any left over? I mean,
Okay,
that you know?
the treehouse itself.
Yeah, the treehouse property
Detective Mitchell would have to answer that. As far as the outside that I could see and saw and documented, that was all picked up.
Okay.
And that, the only thing that I did collect and helped him collect was the knife.
Okay.
Anything that he collected, you would have to talk to him to see what he put in.
And the knife went into a box and then went to the evidence room? Is that
Yes, sir. That was, once that was collected, all items that were collected, once we collected it, it was turned over to the sheriff department, because we work for the city of Key West.
Right.
We just assist in them and assist other agency. All items that were taken were properly given to the sheriff's department and documented with proper receipts and chain of custody.
How long that took? Curiosity. About how?
How long? That was done that
Yeah.
night. That was
Of
passed
that
over.
same night?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Good. Now, you said you handled the knife, it went into property. Did it ever go to the?
The medical examiner?
Yeah. Or make its way
I
to the
cannot
medical
answer
examiner.
that because it's not my case.
Okay.
That's something that the sheriff department.
But you guys boxed it up?
Yeah, all we do is collect it, give it to them. Sheriff department is in charge of the investigation. They're the primary response department.
Unit, yeah.
And the detectives that are working the case, the lead detective are the ones that take care of that property, sending it away.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure we know where all the evidence went and what
Okay.
happened there. So that was the extent of your your investigation with this, though, right? It's just the crime scene when you first got there, the knife, and is there anything else? I think I seem to be forgetting something here.
Pretty much that's all I done. Detective Mitchell did collect a mask, and he did put that in the evidence, but you'd
But
have
that
to
was
talk to
Detective
him. Yeah,
Mitchell.
you'd have to
Okay.
talk to him about that because he's the one that collected it.
Now, is it normal for you guys to get called out when the sheriff's department investigates something, or is that kind of abnormal?
We do help each other out, assist other agency, which would be
That makes
helping
sense.
each other out. On this case, I believe the crime scene technician was out. I believe he might have been in the hospital that night, so they didn't have nobody on call to do evidence collection, which is crime scene investigation. So we went out to assist them to help them do it.
Okay, and you guys don't remember taking any DNA samples or scrapings from Paul Belmont?
All that is going to have to be under Detective Mitchell's.
Okay.
Good. You check his report, everything's in there on
I
that.
seem to remember it being
I
fairly lengthy.
cannot testify to something I did not do.
Okay, no, I'm just checking because
Okay.
I remember I even told you in the hallway. I don't even remember what you did for the
Yeah.
most part.
I'm going to object. There's no questions, Counsel. Mr. Tucker trying to testify.
Okay, as I said, we want to take it one step at a time in terms of question, pause, answer. So,
Okay, I'll take it a little slower for the prosecution.
for the judge as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Actually, I don't think I have any further questions for the witness. I think you've pretty much explained what you did. Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Is there a redirect examination?
No, Your Honor.
Right, and what about this witness? Is
He may be excused at this time.
subject to recall, or he can be excused?
He may be excused.
All right, thank you. You
Thank
can
you,
step
Judge.
down and be excused. Maybe we can approach the bench here a moment, to both sides, and address scheduling. About scheduling, I like to keep the jurors as apprised as I can in terms of what our schedule is. So the state's going to call their next witness in a moment, and his testimony may have to be broken up before lunch and after lunch. So I figure we'll break for lunch somewhere, 12:10, 12:15, something like that. And you have some idea, so for purposes of planning. So state your next witness.
Yes, sir. The state's going to call Roger Raggett.
All right. Sir, would you please come forward right through the gate there? You get close to the deputy right here by the witness stand, this gentleman right here. That's good, thank you very much. Stay right there, face this lady, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, have a seat right here on the witness stand and speak loudly and clearly so we all can hear you.
All right.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right. I'm going to ask you for your name. What's your full name, sir?
Roger Ellen Ruggett.
Ruggett. How do you spell your last name?
R-A-U-G-U-T-T.
All right, Mr. Ruggett. First of all, good morning to you, sir. Thank you for being here this morning. Mr. Ruggett, I want to talk to you a little bit about an event that happened to you a few years ago.
Yeah.
Do you live in Key West?
Yes, I do.
How long have you lived in Key West?
Since '84.
So, long time.
Long time.
And where were you born and raised?
Mobridge, South Dakota.
Okay. Came to Key West in '84, you said. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
All right. And have you lived in Key West ever since?
Yes, I have.
All right. Are you currently employed?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Ruggett?
I'm over here at the golf course.
Over at the golf course?
Yes.
Here in Key West?
Stock Island.
Stock Island? Okay. And what kind of work do you do over there at the golf course?
Maintenance.
Maintenance work?
Cut grass.
How long have you worked there, Mr. Ruggett?
Since '84.
Been there since '84.
Yeah.
All right. And do you live down here?
Stock Island, Key West, yes.
Okay. You have a home or an apartment? What kind of, do
I
you live in?
I got a trailer over here.
All right. Now, Mr. Ruggett, you said you've been in Key West since 1984. Is that right?
Oh, yes, '84.
All right. And you've lived your life down here, right? Since '84.
Yeah, '84.
During your lifetime down here, did you become friends with a woman known as Paula Belmonte?
Yes, I have.
All right. Why don't you tell the jury, how did you become friends with Miss Belmonte?
We partied together.
You partied together.
Yes.
All right. Tell us about that. What does that mean when you say you partied together?
Well, we had drank, smoked.
All right. Well, let's break that down. You said you drank. You drank alcohol?
Yes.
What kind of alcohol did you drink with her?
Bud Light.
Did she also drink Bud Light?
Occasionally.
Was beer your beverage of choice?
Yes.
All right. What about hard alcohol? Did you used to intake any hard alcohol?
Captain Morgan.
All right.
Rum.
And what about Miss Belmonte? Did she also enjoy hard liquor too?
No, I don't think so.
Nope. She stuck to the beer?
Yeah.
All right. Now you said you used to party together, right?
Yeah.
How often would you get together with her to party? Daily, weekly, once a month?
Yeah, well, yeah, 3 times a month or 3 times a week or something.
3 times a week?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
All right. And when you'd party with her, where would you party?
My place, her place.
Okay. You said your place, you have a trailer over on Stock Island, right?
Yes, I do.
What was her place? Like, where did you used to party with her when you went to her place?
Different places, where she used to live.
Did she have a permanent home?
Not really. No, she moved around quite a bit, like me.
Was she ever homeless?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure she was.
Living on the streets?
Uh-huh. Yes, she was.
And you guys would still get together and party and what have you?
Yes, we would.
Now, you said you used to party together and you said you used to drink, right?
Yes.
And you said you guys used to also smoke.
Yes.
What did you guys smoke? Tobacco?
Tobacco.
All right. Did you ever do any hard drugs with her?
Like coke and crack.
Like cocaine? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we smoked crack and snorted coke and smoked cigarettes and
You smoked crack with her? Did you smoke the crack?
Yes,
Did she used to smoke crack as well?
yes,
We're talking about crack cocaine, right?
yes.
And how do you smoke it? You smoke it, you put it, you heat it up? How do you do that?
You put it in a stem, they call a stem, and then you light it up and puff.
And that's how you get the high from ingesting the smoke, I guess, from it?
Yeah, you get high from just the smoke.
All right. And you said you used to smoke crack with Miss Belmonte, right?
Paula,
Or Paula. Okay, fair enough, Paula. How often would you guys smoke crack together?
3 times a week.
Okay. Who used to supply it? Did you supply it, or did
Nope.
she supply it?
She did.
She supplied it?
Yes, she did.
Did you used to pay her for what you smoked, or did she just share it with you?
She shared it with me, and sometimes I paid for it.
All right. And you guys would I guess the word you used was party together, right?
Yes, I would.
All right. It's a hard lifestyle, right?
Yeah, you lose a lot of sleep.
Yeah. Takes its toll, right?
Takes its toll. Yes, it does.
All right, but this is the lifestyle you've lived. Is that fair to say?
Say again?
But that is the lifestyle you lived, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that fair to
It's the
say?
lifestyle.
And is that the
Drinking, smoking. Drinking and smoking, yeah.
Okay, and is that the lifestyle that Paula lived as well?
Oh, yes.
Now, at some point, did Paula take up residence in something called the Treehouse?
Oh, yes.
All right, let's tell the jury, what is this place called the Treehouse? What exactly is it?
A man has built a stairway up around the top of his trailer, and Paul used to stay up there.
And that, was it an actual tree in the center of this
No,
structure?
It just wasn't. It was no tree. It was just actual part that a man built. Stairway going up
Next to his trailer, you said, right?
over the top of his trailer.
And the man that built it, do you know what his name is?
Yeah,
What's his name?
Fred. I mean, what's his name? Matt.
Matthew?
No, it wasn't Matt either. It was.
You don't remember?
Fred or Ed or Fred.
Okay. He's the one that built this structure.
Yes, he did.
Now, you said Paula was living there, right?
Yes, she was.
Or she was staying there, so to speak.
She was living there.
All right. Now, you say she was living there, but Mr. Raggett, I want to be clear. This is not a fully functioning home per se, right?
No, it's just a deck up there.
I mean, is there running water in this structure?
No running water.
No bathroom facilities?
No bathroom facilities.
What about electricity? Is there any electricity?
No electricity.
So at nighttime, I guess it gets pretty dark, right?
Yes, it did.
So what'd you guys do for light at nighttime when you'd be over there partying?
Flashlights.
I couldn't hear you. What was that?
Flashlights.
Oh, flashlight. Okay, fair enough. So there were flashlights, and I guess that was the way you guys would illuminate the place at night. That's how you bring some light to the place.
Yes.
Okay.
It would be.
Now, how long? Do you remember, like, how long Paula was staying at this place called the Treehouse?
6 months. About 6 months, I reckon.
Was it normal for her to move around a lot, or did she stay put?
It was normal for her to move around a lot.
Okay. Do you remember, or do you know, rather, was she paying anybody money to stay in this facility? Like, did she pay anybody rent to live there?
I'm not sure. I never
Okay.
mentioned money.
Did you know a man named Matthew Bonnett?
Matthew Bonnett. No, I didn't.
Didn't know him? All right. But you knew Paula, right?
Yes, I knew Paula.
Okay, so you're there partying with Paula. I want to take you back to August of 2017. You remember that month?
August 17th, yeah.
All right. Something big happened, right? While you were over with Paula one night.
Yes, it did.
All right. Let's tell the jury about what happened. Do you remember the specific date?
No.
And I'm sorry, I said August. I think I meant to say November. It was November of 2017. Do you recall that date?
Yes.
All right. And Do you remember where Paula was living at that point in time?
Yes, I do.
Where was she living?
Up in that treehouse.
All right. Now I want to talk about the date specifically, November 17th of 2017.
All right.
Is that where she was living?
Yes, he was.
All right. Had you been over there to visit her when
Yes,
she
I
was living there?
Yes, I was.
And on November 17th, were you over there on that particular day?
Yes, I was.
Was that the first time you'd gone over there, or had you been over there
No, I've been
before?
up there several times.
All right. And again, you guys would party. Is that fair?
Yes, I were. Yes, we were.
So when you went over there on November 17th, did you go? What was the purpose in going over there?
Either to visit with Matt, which I remember now, Matt or her, you know.
All right. Now you said Matt. You do remember Matt?
I remember now.
Okay. Who's Matt?
Matt is the owner of the property.
All right. And is that the one that lived in that trailer?
Yes.
All right. Do you remember his last name?
No, I don't.
If I told you the name Bonnett, does that ring any bells?
No, I don't.
All right. How did you know him as? Matt?
Just Matt.
Just Matt. Okay. So would you ever party with Matt?
Yes.
And where would you party with him? In his trailer?
Yes.
And what kind of stuff did you do with Matt when you partied?
Played chess.
Played chess? Did you ever drink alcohol with him?
Yes.
And again, what kind of alcohol did you guys drink?
Beer.
Is that what Matt drank as well?
Yes.
Matt ever drink hard alcohol?
No.
All right. What about the crack cocaine? Did you ever share or do crack cocaine with Matt?
Yes.
Did he used to do it as well?
Yes.
All right. So you were friendly with Matt as well as Paula. Is that fair to say?
Paul and Matt, yes.
Now, on November 17th of 2017, do you recall going over to the Treehouse that day?
Yes, I do.
All right. Do you remember what time you went over there?
Almost about 2:30, 4 o'clock.
Sun still up, or had it gotten dark already?
Sun was still up.
Sun was still up?
Yeah.
And when you went over there, do you remember who you went to visit that day?
Paula.
Was Paula? Was she there when you went over?
Yes.
Now, did you have a way to contact her? I mean, did she have a phone or anything like that?
Yes, cell phone.
And did you have a phone?
Yes.
So when you'd go to visit her, would you contact her first, or would you just show up?
I'd just show up. Or,
All right.
Or call her.
All right. On November 17th, do you remember, did you call her that day, or did you just show up?
No, I just showed up, I believe.
Just showed up?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Ragged, if you need any water, I can get you some water, just so you know, okay?
No, I'm
You all right? Okay. So, Mr. Ragged, you said you went over there to visit with Paula, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Sun's still up?
Yes, it was.
Daylight?
Daylight.
And is she at the treehouse?
She's in the treehouse.
And do you make contact with her?
Yes.
And where did you make contact with her? Inside the treehouse?
Yeah, upstairs, on the treehouse, yes.
All right. And did you guys do any partying that day?
Yes.
All right. And again, just so we're clear, Mr. Raggett, so the jury's clear, when you say partying, on this particular day, what were you guys doing? Were you drinking
Yes.
alcohol?
I was, she wasn't.
She wasn't drinking alcohol?
No.
What were you drinking?
Beer.
Okay.
Bud Light.
Bud Light. All right. And you said Paula wasn't drinking that day, right?
She wasn't drinking.
Okay. What about the crack cocaine? Were you guys doing crack cocaine that day?
Yes, we were.
Was Paula doing crack cocaine?
Yes, she was.
And were you doing crack cocaine?
Yes, I was.
All right, and again, that's where you heat it up and inhale it, I guess,
Yes.
right?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So, where did the supply come that day that you guys were smoking? Did you bring it, or did Paula have it?
Paula had it.
She had the supply?
Yes.
Did she ever sell it to you?
Yes.
Did she sell to other people?
Yes.
Were you ever there when she sold to other people?
Yes.
All right. So explain that to us. Her customers would come to the treehouse, I presume?
Yes.
And she would sell them what?
Crack cocaine.
Okay. Did she sell any other kinds of drugs besides crack cocaine?
No.
And did she do this regularly?
Yes.
And you said you were there at times when she would do that. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And
Truth.
yes, sir, that's what we want, the truth. Did you used to sell it?
No.
You didn't sell,
No, I just smoked it.
just smoked it. Okay. On November 17th, when you were over there with her, you said she wasn't drinking, but you were. Is that right?
Yes.
And you guys were both smoking crack.
Yes.
Now, at some point, did day become night that day?
Yes, it did.
All right, sunset,
Yes.
got dark outside.
It's getting dark.
So when it gets dark outside, what's the lighting like inside of that treehouse?
Well, got the lights from the store and stuff. You know,
I mean, is it as
Right
bright
there.
as it is in this room right now?
no, not at all. Not at all. Darker.
Dark?
Not dark.
Hard to see when it gets dark in the treehouse? That's a question, I'm sorry. Is it hard to see when it gets dark?
It's definitely hard to see.
Do you remember using flashlights on that particular day or not to help with lighting?
No, it wasn't that dark at the time.
Okay,
What you're getting into?
all right. And you had been, how long had you been there until something happened?
It was getting dawn, you know. I mean, it was getting a little bit dark, not much.
So not dawn, it was getting dark, right?
Before it went down, yeah.
All right. Were you there after the sunset and it actually got dark outside?
Yes.
Now, where were in the actual treehouse structure, where did she sleep? What was her area in that treehouse?
Right in the middle, tarped around with the tarps around her.
Okay, in the middle, you said, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, was there anything higher up in the treehouse that other people stayed in?
No.
Just her? And you said she stayed in what you called the middle portion, is that right?
With tarps around her.
With tarps?
Yeah, just with tarps.
And what would be the purpose of the tarps?
Yeah, just keep you out.
Try to keep the rain out and stuff like that?
Yeah, keep the rain out, yeah.
Okay. Now, you guys were partying, right?
Yes, we were.
At some point, did something happen that night while you guys were partying?
Yes, it did.
All right, well, let's tell the jury about that. What happened? You're partying, at this point, it's nighttime, right?
Getting dark, yeah, it's getting a little dark.
All right. And what happens, Mr. Raggett? What happens while you're in there with Paula? First of all, let me ask you, was anybody else there with you besides Paula?
No, just me and Paula.
Just you and Paula? Do you remember seeing Matt that day?
Earlier
Earlier in the day you saw him?
downstairs in his place.
But as it became nighttime and you were in the treehouse with Paula, was Matt with you guys at that time?
Upstairs in the treehouse, yes.
That's where you were with Paula, right?
Yes, I was.
So where was Matt? As it became nighttime, where I know you and Paula were in the treehouse, but where was Matt located?
He was downstairs in his trailer.
All right. Do you remember if anybody was with Matt or if he was alone, or do you know if he had people over?
He was alone. He was alone.
Okay. Now, at some point, you said something happened, right?
Yes, something happened.
All right. Well, let's tell the jury what happened.
Two guys came up the steps, looked around the corner. They were wearing a skull mask, and they came up, and I stood up, one of them nailed me, knocked me right back into the chair.
All right, and let me stop you, Mr. Raggett. I'm gonna break this down, okay? Because I have questions while you're giving this jury the story. You said two men came in. Is that right?
Two people with skull masks.
With skull masks.
Yes.
Now, how do you know it was two? You were able to see them?
Yeah, they looked right around the corner. And I go, what the hell is this?
And they came right on in?
Yeah, they came right around, yeah, you know. Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, sir, that wasn't clear. Could you repeat what you just said?
They just came up the steps and right around, they got to make a turn on the steps, you know.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Then they right on the top there, and then they came walking up, and they popped me in the head.
All right, they popped you in. Let me ask you, Mr. Raggett, how are you able to tell there were two of them? Are you able to see enough?
Yeah.
Even though it was dark?
Yeah.
Could you make out their faces?
No, they were wearing skull masks.
Okay. Could you tell what ethnicity they were. Were they black, white? Could you tell anything in that regard?
Nope, they were wearing gloves as well as skull masks.
So you couldn't even see skin to tell if what ethnicity?
That's right.
All right. And you know there were two of them.
I knew there were two of them, yeah.
Now you said when they came in, what was your reaction to it?
I stood up, said, what the hell's going on here? You know, and they hit me, knocked me back into my chair.
All right.
And
Do you remember if they hit you?
Before I get back up again, this person took a knife and put it to my throat, or he put it right here in front of my face, and gave me the motion like this. You know, don't want to hear that damn thing out of you, you know?
And what did you take that to mean, that gesture? And Judge, for the record, the witness is putting his finger over his mouth. What did you take that to mean, Mr. Raggett?
Don't
talk?
Don't talk, don't do nothing. So I sat there.
Now, you said you took a couple of hits from this person, right?
Oh, he hit me, yeah.
How many times did you get hit?
Well, 4.
All right. And then you said when you stood up, they knocked you down again?
Yeah.
When you were being hit, do you recall was a weapon being used or was it a bare hand hit?
Yeah, it was barehanded, it was a glove. I could feel the glove, you know, hit me too. Yeah.
Okay. So you felt the glove on his hand.
Yeah.
And that's what you felt. Where on your body were you being hit?
In the head.
In the head. All right. Did it hurt?
Yeah.
And when you got hit, you said about 4 times?
3 or 4.
Were both men hitting you, or was it just one of the 2 men hitting you?
Both of them were hitting me.
Both of them were hitting you.
Huh?
All right. And ultimately, you said one of them gave you that sign, right?
Yeah.
Now, when he did that, did he leave you alone, or did he stay with you?
He kept that knife in front of my face, yes.
All right. And then at some point, do you remember seeing Paula during this struggle?
Oh, yeah, she was sitting right there getting beat up, too.
And who was beating her up?
The other guy with the skull mask on.
The other guy with the skull mask on? Uh-huh. So were they both beating on Paula, or at this point was one with you and one with Paula, if you remember?
One was beating on me and the other was beating on Paula.
Okay. Do you remember any description as far as the size of these men?
Yeah, I remember the size of them. I know, I could tell by the Swazier who the one was, you know, by meeting him different times up there at Paula's. I knew the Swazier. Get that word right, Swazier? Uh-huh.
Okay. I don't know what that word means, so I'm sorry.
Well, his style, his walk, his talk.
Okay. Were they, like height-wise, were they tall guys, short guys? Were they the same height, or was there a difference between the two?
One tall, one short.
I'm sorry, and I talked over you, and I apologize.
One tall, one short.
Okay. One's tall and one's short, you said, right?
You've got to say yes or no, sir. Not or if you could just.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Raggett, you said one of the men was tall and one of the men was shorter. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall which one was focusing attention on you and which one was focusing attention on Paula?
Yes.
Okay, which one was on you, the tall guy or the short guy?
Tall guy.
And the other one on Paula was the shorter guy?
Yeah.
All right. Now, did this...
Yes. Okay.
No, you did okay. How long did this go on for?
Oh,
No, it's probably hard to say.
10 minutes.
Okay. 10 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, it was.
All right. And at some point, what were they doing to Paula? Were you able to observe what they were doing to Paula?
Jerking her around, saying we'd cut your damn throat, you know.
Do you remember them doing any? I'm sorry.
Give it up, you know. Give it up, Paula, give it up, you know. She goes, Roger, help me. I said, yeah, give it up. You know, give them what they want. Get the hell out of here, you know. Nothing to get poked about, you know.
Sure. At some point, do you know if they inflicted any injuries on Paula?
Yeah.
And what they do to her?
Hit her in the head.
Hit her in the head? Did they cut her?
Yeah.
Where'd they cut her?
Neck. It's right here, I guess.
Do you remember seeing that?
No.
Then how do you know she got cut there?
Because, I I handed her a rag before I ran down the steps.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay?
At some point, when they kept saying give it up, were they specific about what they wanted her to give up?
Yeah,
What they want?
money and drugs.
How do you know that?
Because they said give up the money or the drugs.
All
Either
right.
one, take them both.
And did she ultimately give up the money and drugs?
Yeah,
And did she
Yes.
just hand it over? Do you remember how she was able to give it to them?
she said, right there it is. Take it and get the hell out of here.
And what'd she point to?
Little container on a little container.
All right. A small container, you said, right?
Yeah. a little
All right.
container.
When she pointed that out to them, did they grab the container?
Yes,
And did they leave?
yes.
All right, now, did they leave pretty much together? Did they leave, did one leave before the other, or did they leave at the same time?
No, they left. They left because the man was holding a knife in front of my face, hit me, knocked me through the tarp, jumped over a railing after Matt, and ran down the steps and stuck that man, and then ran back up steps and said, "We gotta go."
All right,
All the time I was under that tarp, you know.
okay. Now, were you guys calling for help while this was happening?
Matt did. I heard him yell,
Matt said what?
"Help!"
Okay. Did Matt come up the stairs to where you and Paula were?
No. Well, yes, he did. He came up steps and he turned around and went right back down.
All right, so Mr. Raggett, I want to make sure that we're clear for the jury, because I want to make sure this is clear. So during the struggle with these two men, at some point did Matt come up to that platform where you and Paula were?
Matt made it up to the platform, seen what was going on, turned around and started walking back down, and that man hit me, knocked me through a tarp, and
And you said you heard Matt yell for help,
yeah, then I heard Matt yell for help.
okay?
And then that man would knock me through the tarp with that skull mask on, said, "We gotta go," to the other guy
All right.
with the mask, with a skull mask on, and they left.
And do you know if they ever made contact with Matt?
No,
Do you know if they ever got to Matt? I mean, were they able to get to him? Did they interact with Matt at all?
you don't have to that with Matt when that person jumped down the steps there and stabbed his ass.
Stabbed Matt.
Yes.
All right. Do you remember where they stabbed Matt? Was where on his body he got stabbed?
No.
And you said he came back upstairs, this man in the mask, and said to the other guy, "We got to go."
We gotta go. We gotta go. That's the only thing you said.
Did they leave?
Yes.
Now, when they left, what did you do? What's the first thing you did? Did you go to Paula?
I went to Paula, see how she was, found a rag for put on her wound, and I ran down steps. As I ran down steps, I jumped over Matt, and I headed out to the alley to see where they went.
All right. Were you able to see where they went?
No.
When you got down to the alley,
they were already gone.
already gone. Did you go back into the treehouse then after you went out to the alley?
Nope, I took off.
Took off.
Yeah.
Did you ever render any aid to Matt when you saw
No.
Matt? When you last saw
Not.
Matt, was he standing or was he on the ground?
He was laying down. He was laying down.
Do you remember if he was bleeding at all?
No,
You don't remember, or he wasn't?
I don't remember, but I didn't see it. I didn't see no blood.
Okay. But you did render aid to Paula, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I gave her a rag. I found a towel there and I grabbed, hold it, I gave it to her, and I ran down the steps.
Okay. Judge, I'm going to show the fence what's been previously marked as Echo
Yes.
Mr. Reagan, I'm gonna have you take a look at these photographs, okay?
Okay.
Tell me if you recognize them. Before we talk about them, tell me if you recognize them.
Yes, Paula.
Okay?
Yeah, there's just Paula. Don't recognize that.
Okay,
Well, it's probably Paula's hand, but
okay.
I wouldn't know.
Let me ask you, do these photographs appear to show Paula? So these two you don't recognize, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, Judge, I'm gonna pull these out.
Yeah.
Let's go with the two that you do recognize, okay?
That's Paula.
Do these pictures fairly and accurately show the injuries that Paula received on that night?
I believe so.
Is that what you observed on her that night?
I didn't look. All I did was head her rag and leave.
Okay. Judge, at this time, I seek to move in what's been previously marked as Echo 1 and 2 to evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so admit states E, identification 1 and 2 is 5, A and B. Yeah, get the ones that went to Crawford, give them back to the prosecutor, mark and admit the two.
Thank you. Okay, now that they're in evidence as states Exhibit 5, composite A and B, Mr. Rugged, I'm going to show these to the jury. Let's keep this one first. I'm going to have you tell them what they're looking at here. Is this your friend Paula?
Yes, that's my friend Paula.
All right. She's got some redness on her face. Is that from the beating she took that night?
Oh yeah, it worked over good. Oh yes, yes.
And this one here, you said you put a rag to her neck, right?
I gave her a rag. I didn't put it there. I gave her a rag.
All right. Why'd you give her a rag?
Because she was bleeding. Well, she said she was.
And after you gave her the rag, that's when you went downstairs, is that right?
Ran downstairs.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. Mr. Rugged, do you know Tyrone Tucker?
Say again?
Do you know Franklin Tucker? Do you know a man by the name of Franklin Tucker?
No, I don't know Franklin Tucker.
I'm going to have you take a look at the defense table. Do you recognize that man?
No, I don't.
Okay. Now, on this particular night, let me ask you this. How did you know it was two men? I know they had masks
I didn't
on.
know those two men. They had skull masks on. I didn't know them.
But how do you know it was men and not women?
Say again?
How did you know they were males and not females? You know.
That's a hard one.
Okay. But in your memory, it's two men.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did you ever have contact with Paula again after this particular day?
Oh yeah.
You seen her again?
Oh yeah.
Have you guys talked about what?
Later on, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I had seen her later on that day. Not that day, but after everything was over with.
And have you guys partied together since then?
No.
Never again since that night?
Nope.
Now, all those events that happened here in Monroe County, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember, you said you saw a knife. Do you remember how many knives you saw?
I've seen two knives, yeah.
You
They
think?
were carrying knives. Big ones, big knives.
Okay, they were or were not steak knives?
Oh, it was a big old white-handled steak knife
Okay.
right in my face.
And you think that there was more than one knife?
The other guy was carrying a knife too.
So you think they both had a weapon, or a knife
They-
rather?
Yes, they both had weapons.
Mr. Rugged, give me just 1 second. Let me check with my partner, okay? I won't show the witness picture. Judge, I'm going to show defense counsel with the mark for identification as Foxtrot. Approach.
Yes, you may.
Mr. Rugged, I'm going to show you a photograph, okay? Tell me if you recognize this person.
Looks like Matt, doesn't it?
Is that who you knew as Matt?
I thought, no, maybe. I don't know who that is.
All right? You don't know, you do or you don't know?
Well, it looks like Matt. Looks like Matt, personally.
All right? Judge, at this time, I seek to move in F for evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, states F for identification is admitted as next in order, being state 6.
So, Mr. Raggett, this is the man that you knew as Matt?
No, it kind of looks like him.
Kind of looks like him?
Yeah.
But you can't say 100%.
Well, his hair's a little shorter.
Okay, fair enough. But you think it looks like Matt? Is that right?
Yes, it kind of looks like Matt. Yes, I did. Yes, it is. Yes, it does.
Fair enough. Thank you, ladies. Mr. Raggett, I don't have any other questions for you, sir. Thank you.
Well, he certainly set me up.
Okay, sir. If you just kindly stay in place there, please.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to address the jury. Members of the jury, thank you so much for your patience and attention during our morning session. As I told you, when this witness was called, we'd break for lunch about now, and that's what we're going to do. Now, leave your notepads there on the seat when you get up. I have a hearing, a short hearing in a separate matter at 1:30, so I'm going to ask that you please be back in the jury assembly room by, let's see, it's 1:45. That's about an hour and a half for your lunch break. Follow the cautionary instructions that the court has consistently given you. Enjoy your lunch. 1:45, be back. You'll be excused till then. I wait to hear the doors closed. Okay, so the jurors are now gone. Mr. Raggett, you're going to be back on the witness stand after lunch because the defense has the right to ask you questions also.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody wants me to give them any special instructions during the lunch break or not. You know,
I don't think it's necessary, Judge. Nothing from the state.
Avoid talking about the case, that's it.
Oh, okay, so the rule of sequestration of witnesses has been invoked. That basically means that you shouldn't be discussing your testimony or the case with anyone during the lunch break.
All right.
All right?
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, enjoy your lunch, and please be back here at like 1:40, all right? It's like 12:16 right now, so you're back by 1:40. That should give you ample time for lunch, and we'll see you then, all right?
Okay, yes.
All right, thank you. You can be excused
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
until after lunch, 1:40. Anything else from anybody before we break?